In a quiet suburban neighborhood, where children's laughter should fill the air, one woman's actions shattered that peacefulness, and a child's dream. When a local HOA Karen took it upon herself to destroy a kid's cherished treehouse, she unknowingly set off a series of events that would change the lives of an innocent family forever. What followed was a horrifying display of entitlement, aggression, and a shocking disregard for the well-being of a young child. By the time the dust settled, the woman was facing felony assault charges, a momentous and sobering lesson for all about the toxic power of unchecked authority. The story begins on an unassuming day, where a young boy, Lucas Green, was playing outside in his backyard, the same backyard that had been the site of his greatest childhood project, his treehouse. For months, Lucas, who had been just shy of turning 10, worked side by side with his father, Chris, to build a fortress of imagination perched high in one of the tallest oaks in their yard. With every hammer strike, Lucas's excitement grew. The treehouse wasn't just a play area, it was his sanctuary, a space where he could dream, read, and let his imagination roam wild. It represented freedom and childhood joy, a bond between father and son that, unfortunately, wouldn't last as long as they had hoped. The Green family, like many others in their suburban community, had lived under the watchful eye of their homeowners association, HOA, for years. The HOA, typically seen as an administrative body tasked with maintaining the appearance and order of the neighborhood, had a history of overstepping boundaries. Rules about lawn care, paint colors, and even the height of fences were strictly enforced, sometimes to the point of absurdity. However, this particular HOA member, Karen Adams, had gained a notorious reputation for being excessively zealous in enforcing regulations, earning her the nickname HOA Karen. Her unwavering commitment to the letter of the law made her an enforcer in the neighborhood, often turning small disagreements into major confrontations. Lucas's treehouse, which was built on a sturdy oak tree near the edge of their property, wasn't one that stuck out too much. It was modest, made with care, and, to the best of the Greens' knowledge, well within the boundaries of what was acceptable by the neighborhood's codes. Still, Karen Adams saw it differently. She believed that the treehouse, although small and harmless, violated the HOA's somewhat vague guidelines about structures in residential backyards. According to her interpretation, anything outside of the standard patio furniture or garden decor wasn't acceptable without the proper permits and paperwork. The HOA, which was supposed to offer community services, had become a battleground. Karen, ever the self-appointed gatekeeper of what she deemed acceptable, approached the Green family one afternoon, armed with her clipboard and a list of alleged violations. "That treehouse has to come down," she stated coldly, her finger pointing towards the structure like an accusation. Chris, initially taken aback, tried to explain that the treehouse wasn't a permanent structure, it was a child's plaything. "It's just a treehouse, Karen. It's not hurting anyone," he said, attempting to defuse the situation with reason. But Karen wasn't interested in reason. She had made up her mind, and the power she felt in enforcing the rules was intoxicating. When Chris refused to take down the treehouse, Karen decided to take matters into her own hands. The next morning, while the Green family was away running errands, Karen showed up with a power saw in hand. No warnings, no legal proceedings, just an immediate, aggressive response to what she considered a flagrant violation. She climbed the tree, cut through the wooden supports, and began dismantling Lucas's beloved treehouse, piece by piece. The power saw's deafening whir echoed through the neighborhood as Karen worked methodically, oblivious to the damage she was causing, both to the property and to the boy whose world was about to come crashing down. The situation took a dark turn when, halfway through her destructive work, something went wrong. One of the support beams gave way unexpectedly, sending Karen tumbling to the ground. The crash was loud, followed by a blood-curdling scream. But the real horror began when, from above, Lucas had returned to see what was happening. As he sprinted into the backyard, he witnessed Karen, still on the ground, and the treehouse, half dismantled, hanging precariously from the tree. In a split second, Karen reached out, grabbed Lucas by the arm, and attempted to yank him away from the area. The boy, terrified and confused, pulled back, and in the chaotic struggle, both Karen and Lucas lost their footing. As Karen tried to regain her balance, she inadvertently shoved Lucas, sending him falling from the ladder. He hit the ground hard, landing on his back. The impact knocked the wind out of him, and a sharp pain shot through his leg. Panicked, Karen immediately called 911, but the damage was already done. When paramedics arrived, they found Lucas bruised and shaken, with a fractured leg and several scrapes on his arms. His parents, who had just returned home, were horrified to see their son in pain, but what was even worse was learning about the cause of his injury. Chris immediately recognized the seriousness of the situation, not just because of his son's injury but because of Karen's reckless disregard for common sense and safety. As the paramedics worked to stabilize Lucas, the police were called in to investigate the incident. Karen, still in shock from her fall and the chaos she had caused, tried to explain her actions. She claimed that she had simply been following the HOA's orders, but her explanation rang hollow. The police quickly realized that her actions had gone far beyond a simple violation of HOA guidelines. She had caused harm to a child, and that, in their eyes, warranted serious consequences. Deputies arrived at the scene, and after a brief investigation, Karen was arrested. The charges were severe: felony assault. Karen, who had once been the unquestioned authority in the neighborhood, now found herself facing criminal charges for what had started as a petty dispute over a treehouse. The news spread quickly through the neighborhood, and residents who had once quietly accepted Karen's dominance were shocked at her reckless behavior. Some neighbors even came forward, reporting that Karen had similarly targeted them for minor infractions in the past, using her position to exert power over others. As for Lucas, he would eventually heal from his physical injuries, but the trauma of that day would stay with him for a long time. The treehouse, once a symbol of childhood freedom, was no longer a place of joy. The Green family, though grateful that their son survived the ordeal, had lost more than just a structure. They had lost their sense of security and peace. The entire neighborhood had been shaken by the events, and many wondered how things had gone so far out of hand. Karen's arrest made headlines, and the legal system took over. She faced a long legal battle, with many arguing that her actions represented an alarming escalation of HOA power gone rogue. The charges of felony assault, however, remained on the table, leading to public outrage and calls for justice. The case raised important questions about the limits of community authority and the responsibilities of those who hold power over others' lives. In the end, Karen Adams was found guilty of felony assault, though her sentence was reduced due to her lack of prior criminal history. The neighborhood, forever altered by her actions, became more vocal about the dangers of unchecked power. The HOA, too, faced scrutiny, with many demanding reforms to prevent such an incident from happening again. But for the Green family, the damage had already been done. Their backyard, once filled with the innocent joy of childhood play, would never be the same again. The treehouse was gone, and the echoes of that fateful day would haunt them for years to come. This tragic incident served as a stark reminder of how one person's overzealous quest for control can spiral out of control, causing irreversible harm to others, especially the most vulnerable. In the end, Karen Adams paid a high price for her actions, but the cost was far greater for Lucas and his family. And for every family in that neighborhood, the memory of that fateful day serves as a cautionary tale about the power of unchecked authority, and the devastating consequences it can have when it goes too far.